Hello everyone, I hope you are all really well and have all had a truly wonderful Christmas. And I would like to take this opportunity to wish you all a very happy new year. Now I know I'm a bit late to the new year party, but I really wanted a good break over the festive season as I've been struggling a bit with bad sciatica. It's quite sharp pain down my leg and it makes it very difficult to walk, so walking and talking is a struggle. And I've been a bit poorly as well with other seasonal illnesses that tend to rear their ugly heads at this time of year. If you're new to my channel, I'm thrilled to have you here with me. I'm Mrs. Smith, I'm a Christian, and I walk about and talk about all sorts of things from a Christian point of view. But if that's not your thing, then please don't leave, because I really do talk about everyday stuff, and I quite often have non-Christians telling me how they enjoy thinking through the subjects that I talk about. So I do try to make sure there is something here for everyone. And even if I do say a few things you don't agree with, that's absolutely fine, because the aim of my videos isn't just to tell you what I believe as a Christian, but also to stimulate you into thinking why you believe what you believe, whatever that might be. So whether you believe in God or not, you are very welcome to be a part of my lovely YouTube community here. Plus, these are just my thoughts, my own opinions. I'm not trying to tell anyone else how they should live their life, but simply sharing with you how I try to as a Christian. I would also like to say a huge thank you to everyone who has subscribed to my channel so far. We are not far from 100 subscribers now, and although that's not much in the YouTube world, that is amazing to me. I really do appreciate you all so much, especially those who I know binge watch through my videos and tick that thumbs up button on them all. You guys are truly wonderful. Thank you so much. Now today I'm walking in the relatively small but very pretty and historic town of Sandwich in the Dover district of Kent in the UK. As you will see, the weather wasn't too kind and so it was a bit quiet today, but I still enjoyed my visit. There are lots of independent shops here, lots of places to eat and drink, lots of nice walks, a good car park, and there are usually a few tourists visiting here as it's on the River Stour and has winding streets and architecture dating back centuries actually. I even managed to climb up to the tower of St. Peter's Church, so do stick around for that later. I was a bit tired, but hey, it really is worth a visit to Sandwich. So my talk today is titled, Is Anxiety a Sin? And that might seem like an odd title, but I'm talking about this as anxiety disorder is something that I have personally and that I manage on a daily basis. Most people who know me probably wouldn't even know that I have it. Well, they will now if they watch my video. But when I first started to experience bouts of anxiety disorder as a Christian, I spent a lot of my time feeling guilty, and I want to tell you why. But first of all, what is anxiety and anxiety disorder? Well, the first thing that I want to say is that I believe that anxiety disorder is very different to just worrying about something or just being concerned about something. I have researched this a lot, and I absolutely agree with the science that tells us that as humans we have something in our brains called the amygdala, which is a structure that basically detects threats and is triggered or switched on when the brain thinks that a threat is occurring. And when that threat goes away, the amygdala is switched off again. And the amygdala is central to anxiety disorders, often showing hyperactivity, which can lead to heightened anxiety. And that in turn can cause all sorts of horrible symptoms. If you have anxiety disorder, you will know that all too well. It triggers the fight or flight response as well, which can actually help us in certain circumstances. But in anxiety disorder, this amygdala structure gets stuck in the on position. It's never switched off, and it interacts with the prefrontal cortex and the hippocampus in the brain, which normally help to regulate it. So anxiety disorder is a recognised and diagnosed condition. Unlike worry or concern, which we can choose to do or not, in some of us, like me, our amygdala is constantly in the red, constantly on overdrive, and we have to learn to manage it. We can't decide to just stop being anxious, because there is something going on chemically in our bodies. The best way that I can describe my feelings of anxiety to someone who has never experienced it is that for me personally, it feels like anxiety has a way of finding a reason for its own existence. And then it squeezes the living daylights out of that reason. It's not an easy thing to live with. I manage it pretty well most of the time, but sometimes I don't manage it that well. And not all anxiety conditions are the same either. There is general anxiety disorder, there are social anxieties, phobias, panic disorders, and a whole host of in-between issues too, right? And not everyone will experience anxiety in the same way either. It's an incredibly complex condition, and I'm not an expert or a scientist, and I only have about 10 minutes to talk about this. So why am I telling you all this anyway? Well, as I said earlier, for years after I became a Christian, I felt guilty about having anxiety disorder. Why? Well, believe it or not, I had some Christians saying unhelpful things to me, like, "You're only anxious because you don't trust God enough," or "If you properly believed in God, you wouldn't be anxious." Now, these comments, and others like them, are often given by very well-meaning Christians who are trying to help. But also quite often they are Christians who have absolutely no idea what they're talking about because they have never experienced true anxiety themselves. And how do I know that? Well, because I know that telling someone who struggles with anxiety disorder to stop being anxious is like telling ice cream not to melt in the sun, right? So if you're saying that to someone, you can't possibly understand what true anxiety disorder involves. So I had other Christians making me feel guilty about struggling with anxiety disorder. And then there were the Christian Bible verses, like in the book of Matthew, chapter 6, in verse 25, where Jesus says, "Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life." And in verse 34, where Jesus says, "Therefore do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself." You know, years ago when I was feeling anxious, it would always be verses like this that would pop into my head straight away, and I would throw a whole load of guilt on top of myself. So for years, due to unhelpful comments from other Christians and my taking Bible verses the wrong way, I had huge guilt about struggling with anxiety disorder, and I felt like every time I became anxious, I was sinning against God. But you know, the Christian Bible, if read in context properly, isn't always saying what we think it might be saying on first glance. Take the Bible verse from the book of Philippians, chapter 4 and verse 6. I've got it here, and it says, "Do not be anxious about anything." Now that sounds like a command, right? It says, do not be anxious. And I am anxious. So surely I'm sinning, right? Wrong. Yes, this verse could be seen as unhelpful for those struggling with diagnosed anxiety disorder. It even has the word anxiety right there in it. Anxiety, don't do it. But that same verse goes on to say, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God." Because you see, God knows us. He knows what we're struggling with. He knows that disorders like anxiety are very real and difficult to live with. And this verse is actually God encouraging us to let him help us in the midst of it all, because God wants to hold on to us, even if we sometimes feel like we can't hold on to ourselves. So we can see here how easy it could be to see a negative in a Bible verse when we're in the middle of a struggle. But if we just delve a little bit deeper and read something in context and fully, we can see the real intention behind it. Also it's interesting to note that the Bible has several words for anxiety, but the most significant one is in Greek in the New Testament, and it's the word merimneo. I'll put that up on the screen for you so you can see how it's spelt. And merimneo is the word that Jesus uses in that book of Matthew when he tells us not to worry. And merimneo is translated as concern or care. It's not talking about anxiety disorder here. And that's really important to note. Its meaning is more in being distracted by concerns or worries, right? A very different thing to anxiety disorder. Understanding the meaning behind a word can really change the way that we read those Bible verses that I mentioned earlier. So when we're in the depths of some kind of anxiety issue, where in the Christian Bible can we focus to see what God really has to say to us about it? Well, a verse that I cling to when I feel anxiety coming on is from the book of 1 Peter, chapter 5 and verse 7. I've also got that here. And it says, cast all your cares or anxieties on God because he cares for you. This verse says two things to me. Firstly, it says that God knows that we're going to experience anxiety, that we're going to get anxious. And secondly, it tells me that God understands and that it's okay because he's there to help us. Now, I don't know about you, but that to me doesn't sound like a God who is condemning. That sounds like a God who is loving and caring and who wants to help us with everything. So to round this up then, do I think that anxiety and anxiety disorder are a sin? No, of course not. Because the Bible clearly says that we're going to experience these things, but that God wants to help us through it. Having faith doesn't make us fearless. We can truly trust God and still experience our heart racing or our mind spiraling or our chest feeling tight for no reason. Having anxiety doesn't mean we don't believe in God enough. It doesn't mean we don't pray. And it doesn't mean we aren't trying our best. It just means that our brain has taught itself to stay on high alert. Some days I pray to God with confidence, and some days I pray while anxious. Sometimes I pray thanking God for everything, and sometimes I pray crying out to him. God doesn't mind how we come to him, he just minds that we come. God doesn't require perfection, he just asks for honesty. And he always meets us where we are every single time, no matter how we're feeling inside. So we can absolutely be a Christian and be battling anxiety. It doesn't mean we are weak. It doesn't mean we are failing. It just means we are human. And coming to God, even when we feel like that is real faith. Thank you again so much for sticking with me today and joining me today. Now, because anxiety disorder is a very difficult thing to have to manage, I have put some helpful links in the description box for anyone who might need them. And if you are new here and you have enjoyed my video today, please do click that like button and please subscribe to my channel as well if you haven't already. It really does help me out. But until next time, thank you all for joining me. Please take care of yourselves and God bless. Bye.